Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hey, it's Jackie Cation. Welcome to the Dork Forest. You know the websites, JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com, TheDorkForest.com, FamilyPetAncestry.com. You're probably already there. Let's do the credits. Mike Rickberg composed and sang that song with his wife Sarah that you just heard. He's going to sing his version of the Mexican hat dance at the end of the program. Patrick Brady is going to fix this audio, and Vilmos works on JackieCation.com, the website. There are many ways to support the show. The Amazon link is one. You can use an Amazon link from JackieCation.com or DorkForest.com to go to Amazon. You order like normal, and it supports the show. There is a straight-up donation button, PayPal or Venmo, to this email address that is mine, Jackie@JackieCation.com, where you can just donate to the show if you like the show a lot. I think PayPal has figured out a way to do a monthly. If you want to go monthly, please do. Other ways to support the show if you want to is you can buy merch. There's Dork Forest t-shirts, and all the shirts are union made here in America, so they run a little big. Union Bayside, so if you want to look up their size chart. And then the other merch is my stand-up merch. On JackieCation.com, you can watch me do stand-up, you can look at my schedule, and the stand-up merch, a couple of different t-shirts, couple of different enamel pins, and all my CDs and my DVD. If you want to live stream my DVD, it's over there at comedyfilmnerds.com. They have a live streaming capability, or you can get a hard copy of the DVD on my website. Oh, there are premium episodes at Bandcamp. TheDorkForest.bandcamp.com has probably 10 episodes that were done live. They cost me a couple of bucks to make, so I charge you a couple of bucks. If you've run out of regular episodes, go over to TheDorkForest.bandcamp.com and get some more. Other than that, I say this. Let's get into the show. Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I'm in my living room. A return guest, Dan Telfer, friend of the people. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad I'm a friend of the people.
You talked dinosaurs many moons ago.
I did. It's a bit that will haunt me to my grave. I enjoy the bit,
It's a signature bit. That's how it is with signature bits. That will haunt you.
I know.
It will yell things.
I remember I had a Jared at the Comedy Attic in like 2012-ish. He's like, oh, I've been telling a lot of people you're going to do the dinosaur bit. And I was like, oh, I can do it. I wasn't planning on doing it. And he's like, what? Why not? And I was like, well, because it's at this point, it's like 5 years old. And I'm trying to record a new hour. And he was like, I just don't understand why you wouldn't do some people like it. He got very huffy with me.
Well, that's because it was, it was a long time ago, right? It was like 10, 15 years ago, right? When we were at the attic together.
Yes. Back when it was a Funny Bone.
And it was before I even played it then.
Yes.
And he didn't. I think Jared has learned a lot about stand-up comedy in the last 12 years, and he doesn't.
Booked me lately.
Well, no, I think he hasn't. I think he has other things to say besides talk about your favorite bit from 5 years earlier.
Oh, sure. Well, he's running it much more efficiently now.
Yeah, I think it's a learned skill, and I think he learned something. So. God knows.
He loved to give me a hard time.
Dan Telfer, by the way, is a stand-up comic. You may or may not know Rangers of the Dork Forest. You'll remember him from the dinosaur episode from many moons ago. But here's a scoop. It's at Dan Telfer. That's where it's all happening. We had Brian Posehn. Who's we? Tiberius passed away very sadly.
You and your entourage.
Yeah. Me and my entourage in this living room. Me and these many photographs. It's a little spooky. It's Halloween month.
I love the metal anglerfish. That's the one I always look at when I'm here.
Oh, that's that we just got that. You know where we got that? Speaking of D&D, we got that in the home of Gary Gygax.
Wait, you just got that? I know I've seen it before. I was here a couple months ago.
Okay, that's when you would have seen it because we got it about a year ago.
Because I'd feel like a real
Lake Geneva.
Big weirdo if I was making up having seen it in your home.
That would be weird. Or you had seen it somewhere else and was like, that looks familiar.
Oh, you got it at
yeah, we got it in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, home of the guy that invented D&D.
One of several people who invented D&D. One might even say that he co-opted it from several other people. However, I do appreciate what Gary Gygax did for the Dungeons & Dragons community. End of my little clarifying.
Oh my God, that is welcome to the Dork Forest.
It's one of those things where
where
I'm obsessed and love everything he did, but then like all these articles will come out where you'll find out like, it was a very collaborative process.
Yeah. Feet of clay. And the fact that he was the lead singer in the band.
That's exactly how a good metaphor would.
Yeah, he gets all the credit and probably all the girls.
Oh Lord, I wouldn't know such things.
That seems unlikely. I've seen photos. I saw his house where he grew up. Andy was like, "Why isn't this a museum?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, Indiana Jones. It isn't a museum. It's a house that people live in." So, but you DM for Dungeon Master for Nerd Poker with Brian Posehn, and
was just on talking about heavy metal.
Right there. And,
that is how it goes.
That's how heavy metal sounds in my brain. Actually, this is how heavy metal sounds in my brain.
Sick solo.
That's how it sounds. But I know there's more to it now because Brian Posehn took the time to explain, and it was lovely. And now you also are writing for
it's for the digital arm of D&D, the D&D Beyond.
So Wizards of the Coast.
Wizards of the Coast.
It's called D&D Beyond.
D&D Beyond is an arm of a company called Fandom. They run a lot of the like pop culture wikis out there, and D&D Beyond runs like the digital tool set for Wizards.
Oh, okay.
So they have like the thing online, which I'm sure you've used at some point. No?
Oh, the wiki?
No, you don't know what I'm talking about anymore. I've lost you in the labyrinth. It's like
I've weeded off. I'm so sorry.
No, it's what I wish existed when I first started playing D&D, which is like you go into a website and you can roll up your stats with physical dice, or you can just type them in. But like it'll make your character sheet into a PDF real easy. You have access to all the books on the internet.
Can you enter it manually? Because I think that
there's like manual, and
here's what you need to know about
they
the many D&D
call them
games.
arrays.
Oh, the many D&D games that I've played. I have been handheld through the character process.
Yes, which I think is nice.
Which is beautiful, and the only way I would have done it. So it's why Andy made the Hero Instant, was so that I could make a character in an instant. He created a tabletop RPG game so that we could play more often.
Oh,
Sadly,
that's awesome.
I'm not playing as much. But he has found many other people who just like to also make a very quick... he used one of mine, Firebike Mike. It was Mike who had a bike, and he could control fire. So, Firebike Mike, great character, HeroInstant.com.
You have been on my Dungeons & Dragons podcast, Nerd Poker.
Yes.
You've been in 4 bonus episodes.
Yes.
With Guy Mansplain, who you had no need to have me help you make. You had used him in other adventures before.
No, it was Gaston Mansplain.
Gaston Mansplain. Oh, my God,
and
thank you.
the thing about Gaston Mansplain is Andy helped me make Gaston Mansplain. But he might use that website, but we play
that's a possibility.
The longest game that I am in. We've been playing it since 2003 or 2004, and we are gods essentially. We are like 17th level banana heads, and we wander the earth. And
that happens,
right? And so, but it is funny because when I don't know what I'm doing, I just ask one of these gentlemen who started playing when they were 13,
right.
And they have swallowed all of the books, and they could go, I either know that or I'm about to tell you in about a heartbeat as we go to page 412, and then we go down to this. And so they're very good at it, and it makes the game so much fun because I can just essentially be in the game. And then they love to read those books, so we all win. And because there's, did you play when you were 13?
Yeah, I played a little bit younger than that, and then I played on and on. I mean, it was tough because I didn't know any other nerds. I was pretty socially isolated till college, so like there was a lot of just like moments where I tried to play.
And did you do a lot of book reading of it?
Yes. So mostly I just read like the Monster Manual front to back, each edition for 20 years.
There you go.
I was in like, I would want to say like a total of a dozen games before I was 18, but like most of them involved me showing up, talking about Dungeons and Dragons and no one ever playing because it was too weird.
Right. And very complicated. And
it's so complicated. And like when you're 10 and a bunch of 10-year-olds are trying to play, like you just talk about swords and someone picks up a stick. Like there's not really.
Andy's run a couple of games for kids. And
I play with my daughters, yeah.
Oh, yeah? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. Because, I mean, but they need structure and they need someone to sort of prod them along. But they thoroughly enjoy it. And
my daughters are very good at improvising and want to dungeon master, and it's hard because I'm like, well, you can dungeon master, sure. And in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, there will be no structure to this one.
No. This is just a free for all of. You walked into that woods, and that's where, and you're like,
yeah, they're like better at story than I am. They're like more creative than I am, but like zero structure.
Right. And I do like.
What should we roll here, Dad? Yeah.
Nerd poker is actually quite fun, and everyone can listen to Nerd Poker on your various platforms. I assume.
Correct.
And then
we're
you
on
have
everything.
a Patreon too.
We have a Patreon where we have. Bonus episodes, like last month we had Paul F. Tompkins come and play with us on bonus episodes. But we have like a main adventure, and I write all of it. I write the story. I homebrew a lot of the monsters and stuff like that. It's a good time.
And then you also do
very good writing outlet.
Yeah, and then D&D Beyond,
where I do like essays and articles.
Right, and then you co-host a stand-up show every week.
I do
here in Los Angeles.
Once a month.
Once a month. Okay.
So there's this really cool space called Geeky Teas and Games in Burbank, which
Andy loves it.
Oh my God, they sell gaming supplies. They have a bunch of tables and party rooms where you can play.
He's done play testing galore there.
Stuff people will go there, play Ticket to Ride. They'll do all sorts of stuff in addition to Dungeons and Dragons, and they have Harry Potter merch and all that nerd stuff. But then in the back, there's this showroom.
Like a black box theater.
It's a black box theater. It looks very much like the old Meltdown space, except actually much cleaner. And it's
right.
Great.
It's not 100 years old, which is what Meltdown was.
Right. And so my best friend Taya and I, she's someone I've known from Chicago sketch and stand up for 15 years.
Cool.
She and her husband moved out here recently, and so we started this show. We both run open mics there too, but we have a monthly show there called The Filling, and we bring in. There's one tonight. This is recorded in the past, significantly.
Right in the past. So the one for October is.
And you've been in it. You know.
I've done it. It's been great. Is there room tonight, by the way?
Is there?
Yeah. I would love a set.
It is very packed.
It's very packed. I'm doomed. Anyway, but I've already put out a feeler to the flappers to see if I can get a set because.
How long a set are we talking?
Just 5 to 7.
I'll talk to Taya about it.
You look into it. Look into it. All right. And
we just fit in.
Guys.
Yeah, it's our longest lineup we've ever had. So it's a matter of like, will Taya have a panic attack if I run it back? I'm sure she won't because we love you.
Right. And whatever happens, it's all cool. And just think, somebody might cancel.
Well, God, of course they will. That's happened at least 4 times.
There you go. And we are 10 minutes in to a vital discussion time.
It's probably in the episode title, so everyone knows it's coming, and they're all like, they've talked about Dungeons and Dragons for 10 minutes.
The expanded universe of The Wars of Stars.
The expanded universe.
What does that mean?
Can I walk you through from the beginning?
Yes, please do.
So this idea of there being canon and a universe for intellectual properties is old in that, like, Tolkien did it. Frankenstein had sequels a long time ago. Like it's not like a new idea.
Shelley wrote
no to the movies.
Oh,
James Whale busted out some extra content.
I was like, what happened
for the kids? But like, but like the Silmarillion, I think is a good example of just like how you can take what was originally one kid's book and just blow it way out with just notes, and lore and short stories all mashed together.
Sure.
And so when,
though of course he wrote it first.
Yes, and infamously, George Lucas made the first movie having no plans to make sequels. Later, he told everyone he always had a whole universe in his head, but no. We all saw it. We all know.
We all know that it was a cowboy movie that he's stuck in space.
Exactly. It was
and thank you for doing it, because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, he took some samurai movies, some Joseph Campbell books, and a spaghetti western, and just kind of mashed it all together.
I saw a movie called The Viking that had the battle scene from Empire Strikes Back that was almost shot for shot.
And if you watch the old Kurosawa movies, like Throne of Blood, you'll just be watching, you'll go, oh my God, like there's so many moments shot for shot.
It was Kurt Douglas.
The droids and stuff.
It was called The Vikings. And it was a Kurt Douglas movie. And he loses his arm. And he falls. And he holds on with the other arm.
Mm-hmm.
And then he lets go. And you're like, well, just wait a minute, 1957. Seems about right.
It's so weird when...
So the main universe is those three movies?
I think so. Well, let me put it this way. There is no real main universe anymore. It's gotten too complicated.
Okay.
Because I was born in 1978 to two nerds, I was sucked into it very fast.
Weaned on it.
I saw Return of the Jedi in the theaters in 83, and then immediately demanded to see the other two movies. My parents thought it would be too scary, and I went with my uncle, and I came back going, it was amazing! And then by absorbing the other two on VHS or Laserdisc or PBS replay or whatever it was, I was like, okay. I even though I just saw Jedi first, I'm reorganizing it in my head. I'm keeping track of the story. I'm making it like I saw the first one first, even though it came out before I was born by a year. And like,
did you ever read that book, Splinter in the Mind's Eye?
Let's get into the actual expanded universe with that example. So the first movie was written by the same dude who wrote Splinter in the Mind's Eye, Alan Dean Foster. So
I read it when it came out, and I was so pleased.
It is the first expanded universe Star Wars.
Oh, really?
Thing. Yes.
It's the first spinoff of anything that wasn't Lucas.
Yes.
Okay.
So, like, there's this thing that you and I will remember. Folks of a certain age, our age, will know this. There's this thing before video games, before streaming networks, before universes existed. Can I swear on this one?
Fucking A. Live it up.
You fucking soaked up novelizations of movies. Like, I remember I saw Spaceballs, and then I was like, where's that novelization? I saw the Warren Beatty Dick Tracy and just soaked up that novelization.
There were movies
that was a good novelization
allowed,
for a dumb movie.
There were movies I wasn't allowed to see, but I was allowed to read the novelization.
Yes. And it's so wonderful. And Alan Dean Foster, when he wrote the Star Wars novelization, it said it was written by George Lucas, but he ghost wrote it.
Okay.
And that's why they gave him Splinter of the Mind's Eye. So like the novelizations always have a little bit of like stuff that's not in right. Because it's so thick.
Yeah.
It's a thick ass thing. And so I remember when I cheated and I read the novelization of Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace before the movie came out. And I was like, this is going to be amazing. And then when the movie came out, I was like, oh no. I still liked it, but I was I was like so hyper.
Joseph Scrimshaw did an entire episode defending the prequels.
And we won't get into that. We should dodge that as much as possible. Although it is an interesting point to bring up. So like, the novels and something else that I'll say in a second were like the main first steps into making this expanded universe because when he made Splinter of the Mind's Eye, that was like a failure, and they assigned other people to write the next novelizations. Yeah. But then there was the Adventures of Han Solo and the Adventures of Lando Calrissian novels that came out after that,
right? Which I never read,
right?
And by the way,
they're okay.
Because Splinter in the Mind's Eye, I loved it and hated it both.
Well, what's great about that, the Splinter Mind's Eye and the Adventures of Han Solo and Adventures of Lando, they were very pulpy. They were very like space western and
very 1967, where you're just like, okay.
And there's all those homages to it in the Solo Star Wars movie, where you see in the background of that crime lord. There's all these like trophies he has, and there's a bunch of like there's like a crystal skull and like a Mandalorian armor suit where you're like, oh wait, that's or Lando's does like a voice diary of adventures that him and L3 are on, and he's talking about the mind harp that's from the books, and so like some of that stuff is being brought back, and those are fun books, but. But in a lot of ways, that was just the first round. And then there's the first Marvel comic books that came out after that.
Really?
Yeah. So like Marvel, at first they were writing the story. They were doing like the comicization of the movies.
Fair enough.
And then they went ape shit.
Yeah.
And they put out tons of issues. They sold super well. And it just went fucking bonkers.
In the 70s?
In the, I think, 80s? Early 80s.
Okay.
And they did all this stuff. Like there's this green rabbit named Jackson, and like all stuff that just doesn't fit. Like knowing now what we can do with Star Wars canon, it's just like, woof. And they brought Jackson back. He's like in new comic books and stuff. Like they tried to like re-canonize a lot of this old stuff because now there's all these people who grew up on it and now they're 50 and they're like, I want to write it back in.
Yeah.
But so then there's all this other stuff that happened. And I would love to go back because I'm skipping some of my favorite stuff. But,
then go back.
But the short version is the expanded universe, as the 80s and 90s went on, kind of blew out horizontally. And then the prequels happened, and that contradicted some of it. And so Lucas had to be like, well, I'm doing... I told you to stay away from this area, and I always said I would do these movies. He only said he would do them in like the late 80s, early 90s. But like... I want to get back to that too, kind of, but there's so much here.
Yeah.
And I want to also, just because I know people are listening, who know more about this than I do, because I'm a very forgetful person.
Sure.
I'm going to try to touch base on like this stuff.
The enthusiasm makes up for it. Don't worry about it.
But like, I'm going to touch on the parts that I think are important. So like, then there's like the first sort of like culling of the expanded universe in the late 90s, early aughts, where the prequels happen. And Lucas had to be like, well, it doesn't fit with my vision.
Right.
So this no longer happened, even though it was in the novel. And he was letting people just write books and like just letting the canon happen. And all sorts of
He wanted to buy land.
Crazy bonkers stuff happened in the 80s and 90s. And then those movies happened. And then Disney got the rights. Mm-hmm. Lucas decided he wanted to make other
That was relatively recent, wasn't it?
Yes, it was like 2007. No, later? No. It was maybe
But it was in the 2000s.
2009, 10 even. But like it was yeah. I mean, it was when we thought Star Wars was basically done, or that Lucas might make some more bad movies. Sorry if you like the prequels.
Away.
I love the prequels when I watched them the first time, and my daughter, my oldest, likes them, and there's room in my heart for them. But to me, they're like bad movies that I love. So
it doesn't matter. The thing is they're made for the children that they're made for, and they get to watch them.
Yeah, exactly.
And they get to like them. And I believe Joseph Scrimshaw's point was something that I think one of my brothers has. My brother Russ will often say, if a movie has one good scene in it, that's a good movie. And you're like, that is a low bar, my friend. But like the Darth Maul fight. Yeah. That's an amazing fight.
It is.
That's super fun.
And Ray Park, the guy who was he did the body, like actual Darth Maul. I mean, Peter Serafinowicz did the voice. Like that combo was just really intense. And I mean, then the complaint is, why didn't they use Darth Maul more, right? Why did they do
why would they kill him?
Right.
Why would they do that?
And then he came back on
the
Solo movie.
And then he came back. Well, and didn't he come back in the cartoons?
I liked it. Yeah, he did. He was in the Clone Wars cartoons. So I'll back up one more time.
Yeah.
Like once Disney took over, they completely wiped clean everything and said, before we took over, none of that expanded universe ever happened.
Right, I remember
at all.
that.
It's all fake now, or legends, as they call it. So so I thought that was awesome. Because I'll go back now and I'll talk about some of my favorite expanded universe stuff. Yeah. Most of which happened before the culling, the great culling of 2011 or whatever. But there's so much good stuff before that, but there was too much, and I couldn't keep track. And as much forgetful as I am someone who loves to keep track of what is canon, and I love that there's an idea of canon.
Okay.
And Lucas was just kind of like letting people run with stuff, and there's all sorts of stuff like Luke Skywalker falling in love and having babies that did make me kind of go like, I don't that. When I was a kid, I kind of loved how just sort of androgynous and like focused on heroism Luke was, and it was kind of weird. Like Mara Jade is the woman he fell in love with and had a kid with in the 90s. Oh, in Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire trilogy, which is a huge deal. And so I love that trilogy, but I was also like that part was
in the 90s. All of my nephews and nieces were reading different series, and I tried to read. I read I read 14 of the Dragonlance books, which...
Hell yeah. Those were so good.
The first 9 were good.
Did you read Forgotten Realms too? Did you ever go like Pools of Radiance? Or
that sounds vaguely familiar. And then, so that was my nephew Paul. When Salmon was reading, he was reading the Star Wars books, and he read like 30 of them. And I was like, no, I got 4 in, and I had to let it go.
So the big thing that kind of so the 80s
when Solo went into the academy because he wanted to be a stormtrooper.
Yes. I loved, by the way, as much smack as I just talked about the prequels, I loved the solo movie that came out. I really thought it was
the Lando movie.
That's what I think. It should have been the Lando movie.
Yeah, because he was amazing.
Well, right. Like I really loved the solo movie, but I really felt also like they should have made it the Lando movie. Because oh my God,
Lando was
Donald
amazing.
Glover fucking killed that.
Knocked it out of the park.
He was sexy as fuck.
Fuck.
It was alarming, and L3 was my favorite droid I've ever seen in a Star Wars movie. Phoebe Waller-Bridge has already proven her worth to the world at this point, but we talk about underutilized. And like I really felt like if they had been the center of the movie, better. But there's
But that's fine.
Yeah. I forget why I brought that up. But
so you were reading all of the books
Yes.
and seeing and
Yes.
wallowing in the joy that was that canon.
And the 80s were kind of a clusterfuck for expanded universe. There was stuff that happened, but it was mostly like the Marvel comics, and then the Ewoks had their own animated series and TV movies.
Oh, really?
And then the droids had their own animated series, and that was like canon. It was like it was the Star Wars you could have, and that was when I was a kid.
C-3PO and R2-D2?
Yes, and it was weirdly animated. It was interesting and, in my opinion, decent, but it hasn't aged that well. It's very cartoony and even though it's good and I like it, like I showed like 5 minutes to my daughters, and they were like, "What is even happening?" Because it feels like it was definitely made in the same era as like the Smurfs and the Snorks and like the Gummy Bears cartoon,
and possibly that Doctor Strange movie.
It's fun, but it's like it was one of those weird things where I was aging at this rate and time when a lot of people were falling out of love with Star Wars, and I was just dwelling on it. Like people were like, "Oh, Star Wars is that weird thing." Like when I did Last Comic Standing, it was right before Force Awakens came out, and I remember I did a Star Wars joke, and Norm Macdonald was like, What are you even talking about? This old weird 70s movie. No one cares about what is it called? Star Trek?" Like it was like watching it was like what it was like in the 80s.
Right.
To be a Star Wars fan. I remember I had like a Return of the Jedi t-shirt in like 1990. And a kid was like, "What is that?" Like there was this weird kind of just sort of we forgot what this was moment.
There was definitely a fading away of it. It was weird that you just, because there were plenty of people that I knew who just kept it up, you know?
Yeah.
But it was not, I don't think it was in the bigger sense of the society. Like I think it did slow down a great deal.
And movies all had a lot of like their own fandoms. At that point, I remember like people always wanted it to be the next Star Wars and thought it was likely and possible because Star Wars was done. And so like it was someone else's turn. So that to me there was this feeling
the
of
last Starfighter was going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, or Starman.
Yeah. But Star Wars was like buried, and so everyone was like, whose turn is it? Who's going to make the next big epic fantasy space opera thing?
Right.
And then so then those novels, the Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire trilogy, kind of brought it back before the prequels even happened in the early 90s. So like there was like a resurgence of novels in the mid 90s because of this series, and it's very popular. Mara Jade is this character who she ended up marrying Luke, but she started kind of evil. She was like the hand of the Emperor.
Oh, okay.
So like the Emperor was like this weird ghosty clone bullshit. I'm not even going to get into it, but like the idea of the Emperor being in Rise of Skywalker coming out is not a new idea. Like in the expanded universe, he like came back via a clone and all this stuff. But Mara Jade was like a sort of weird mercenary Jedi type. She was in touch with the Force, but she was more like an assassin, and then she became a good Jedi and married Luke.
Oh, okay.
She was invented in the Timothy Zahn trilogy. And then he also, people call the Heir to the Empire trilogy the Thrawn trilogy because he invented this other character who's actually been recanonized in all these Disney
because they liked him?
Yeah, he's very popular, called Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Okay.
And so he's this weird race called the Chiss, and they're these blue-skinned, red-eyed people. Okay. And it was a big deal for him to be in the Empire because there was this theme that has kind of been let go that the Empire was ultra-racist.
Yeah, they were white supremacists.
They were supposed to be like an analog for Nazis in a lot of ways. And that's kind of been let go. And there's kind of been this idea of like inclusion within the empire being important. And I'm not going to really get into whether I'm too straight white cis to act like I have an actual part in that discussion. But
it's a weird thing for them to do. I think maybe because the stormtroopers have been... they've vilified.
I do think it was an interesting / good choice to have this black stormtrooper be basically a child slave and like forced into becoming a stormtrooper, and that's why he bails.
Right. The brainwashing and the capturing.
So for that reason, it makes sense.
And he's just numerical. And what was his name in the movie? Finn. That's it. Because it was, I've only seen the movie 3 times, and it's been years.
I've seen it like 5 or 6.
It's sitting in that case.
So like for this guy, this blue skinned dude to be in the Empire was a huge deal. Mm-hmm. And it's called Heir to the Empire because in a sense he takes over this old fleet of Star Destroyers.
Okay.
And after the Emperor disappears, he's sort of running the fleet, like the remaining army.
Okay.
And he's this, his race, but also him are known for being these very intense, ruthless strategizers. And so like he's winning all these pocket wars, even though he doesn't have like a centralized government to report to. And,
okay.
He has these things, I think they're impossible to pronounce out loud. So if I get this wrong, who gives a fuck? But they're called like, I think Issimilari. He has these weird fuzzy salamanders that he has like evil supervillain cats, and they block the Force, so like Jedi can't read his mind or find his ship because he's got these
Magneto's helmet.
Yeah, but they're like furry salamander aliens,
and he holds them in front of him instead of putting them on his head.
Well, no, they do crawl on him a little bit.
Oh, there you go. They do. Why wouldn't they?
But yeah, like, and so he was really popular because he was so unique and different. And he was the first time in the Empire you see anyone besides basically a British dude.
Right.
And although in my head he was British.
Yeah.
He was a blue-skin British, like, racist.
Yeah.
But, like, he, was in that trilogy, and they made, like, action figures of him and Mara Jade. They were, like, the first expanded universe action figures.
Oh, wow.
And they made more. There's the Dark Empire storyline. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that started happening in the 90s right before everything started to get chopped down.
Yeah.
Some video games started coming out, like, because video games didn't really have the technology to have a good story, but then in the 90s they started to. And so there's all this stuff like Kyle Katarn is a character that came from it. There's the Jedi, like, Outcast games.
Okay.
There's the Rogue Squadron games where there's a lot of Wedge Antilles. If you like that Wedge Antilles fighter pilot stuff, the 90s was a boon for him. And there's a lot of really cool stuff. My favorite stuff happened in the mid to late 90s and in the early aughts, which is Old Republic stuff.
Okay.
I really felt like whenever I would get kind of like queasy in my tum-tums, it's when a writer would try to take a lot of creative license with sort of the core morality or heart of an existing movie character.
Okay.
For example, Luke Skywalker getting married, having babies, Han and Leia's children becoming Jedi. Like, that's fine. I can live with it, but something about it just feels like, well, give me the movie instead. Like, why are you? It feels a little bit like not corporate monetizing cheap, but kind of creatively like, I don't need this.
Well, here's what I think that feels like in my mind.
Like, more so than the new movies. Like, the new movies, you can have anything happen to Luke because it's a movie. I get to see Mark Hamill again, and
it's fine. It's all good. But
it bothers some people. It's the novels and the comic books and stuff when that happens. It makes me feel weird.
What I don't like when characters, like heroic characters or whatever, they get married, they have kids. they grow old, they die. That feels like a publisher thing. Write one more book. Write one more book. And you're like, the Master Harper of Pern, I would like him to be alive forever in the Dragon Riders of Pern. I don't want to watch the 30th.
Anne McCaffrey, ladies and gentlemen.
It's
get into it.
13 books later. We don't need to watch someone die of old age. I'm good. I want him to be quippy until then you just go further back in time.
Stop trying to turn the last episode of 6 Feet Under into an entire novel.
And then they did the same thing with Lois McMaster Bujold, where Errol Vorkosigan dies of old age. And you're like, dude. And then, because I do understand creating a new generation of characters to go on adventures.
Which is one of the things that I think did very well with the new trilogy.
Yep.
And one of the things that I feel like
especially that
I really
war
hope
movie.
they take advantage of. Oh, Rogue One?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was an amazing movie.
It was so good.
It was so good.
I wept during the ending, and it was the first. I could not believe I was crying.
Yeah.
I was like, because the whole movie, it is kind of
I
dispassionate.
was in shock.
At the
end of it, I was like, no, of course there's some of the. Oh wait. Yes, the sacrifice of.
It freaked me out how it freaked me out.
Yeah. That was pretty great.
Because a lot of people complained that the characters weren't likable enough, and the whole movie, I was thinking, well, this is dark. This is
a war movie.
But then at the end, and I don't watch a lot of war movies, so they kind of got me. They kind of snuck up on me a little bit with that shit.
Right, but then you were like, well, they're all making terrible, like they're making those compromises that you make in war movies, and I assume in war. But that you're like, no, that guy isn't likable at all.
They're doing really, really, really good storytelling with the new movies, and people who are hurt, I get it. Like a lot, obviously there's people who are hurt by the new movies in a number of very loudly expressed ways. But like the way, I love how it gets me, and I love there's the scenes that nobody really liked in The Last Jedi that everyone likes to complain about.
Which ones?
The ones in the Casino Planet. A lot of people say that's unnecessary, but I thought it was fucking romantic. I don't care if Rose and Finn don't fall in love. I felt like they're talking about disassembling capitalism and they're fucking freeing these animals. There's a moment where they're riding the animals and then they're like lost in the cornfields, and I was just like, this fucking rules. Like, I would.
Yeah. Well, and it's the point of all of this, essentially craptastic, awesome storytelling is to actually have some sort of point.
Yeah.
And whether that point is right wing or left wing, and because that happens too.
I have opinions about that.
Well, no, there's movies I don't want to. When I saw Blue Crush, and the message of Blue Crush, the surfer movie.
It's a stalker surfer movie. Right? I never saw it, but I love it.
No, the B plot of is true happiness is found through corporate sponsorship, and you're just like, well, that's actually not the lesson. And I mean, if you watch Lilo and Stitch, it's.
I did not enjoy Lilo and Stitch.
Well, the foster program is broken.
Yeah.
And so you're like, shit. And I was like, why don't you do a movie where you fix it? How about that? And I know that also is fiction, but I would like to see that movie.
And that's, okay, so the reason
Maybe Shazam. Anyway, go.
The reason I really like the Old Republic stuff is that it takes place thousands of years before the trilogy, and you get talk about getting to run away with analogies about governments and people and generations and mistakes. Like they get to go, oh yeah, the Force existed thousands of years ago. The outer space travel still existed thousands of years ago. Here's the way everybody fucked it up.
Right.
And it's so, to me, just gripping.
These are still novels?
Yeah. So people are still doing it, but I think Disney has been a little careful about how to bring the Old Republic stuff in, because I think they're strategizing how to make a shit ton of money off it. They know because there's
so much there.
Yeah, basically what happened chronologically in the real world,
okay,
not the Star Warsy world.
Oh, interesting.
Is Marvel gave up the comic books at one point, so they had those super goofy '80s ones, and then in the '90s, Dark Horse took it over. Mm-hmm. We all know Dark Horse.
Dark Horse owned by...
I think they're now owned by DC, but I forget, it's complicated.
It's Vertigo is sure
They might be... DC. Yeah, Vertigo has been absorbed by the DC amoeba. I'm not sure how the Dark Horse thing works, but I know they're separate. And so Dark Horse got the Star Wars rights and put out what I think is some of the best shit. And they put out these Old Republic stories about just like the origins of the Sith. There's like this Sith planet called Korriban, and they like these old Jedi who just sort of stumbled on the Force. And I think that's really compelling. Just like people realizing they're kind of weird people and then suddenly able to have superpowers and like slow motion figuring it out and then having to be exiled to other planets is like, it was really well done. And then I can go back to that if you want. But the big commercial success from the Old Republic stuff was the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic video game that came out in like 2000. And then it had a kind of broken sequel because it was just too hard corporate-wise to keep the same team together. So there's a second game that came out, but the ending wasn't finished. So it's like this really decent game, barely tied together to the first game, kind of confusing in parts. And then the ending, like you go in this Sith temple and clear everyone out, and then that's it.
Yeah.
There's no cinematic. It's just like, oh, you cleared them out. They don't even say, oh, you cleared them out. Like, you just clear them out and the credits roll. And you're like, wait, what the fuck? And it's because they just couldn't keep it together. But the first game had this really cool conceit of it's choose your own adventure style role playing. And like, you get to explore these planets and run around. And you get to decide if you're light or dark. Decided what gender you are. They're going to talk to you based on those choices. I think 2000. Okay. It might have been like 2001 too.
Yeah.
But that was kind of capitalizing, I think, off of the momentum of people knew this Old Republic stuff existed. And then eventually they came out with this massive multiplayer game called The Old Republic. That's pretty popular, but I didn't, at that period of my life, it's still out. Didn't have a PC. I've only had Macs, and so I couldn't play it. It's like a PC. I've never been super into the idea that I need to update my computer to keep playing a video game. And I played World of Warcraft for a long time, and I just sort of burned out because I was like, I don't want to fucking keep having to buy laptops that can run this shit.
Right.
I just want to have a laptop to write and a TV with a console. That's my video game consumption and computer use. So, but that exists too. Like there's this weird game called just Star Wars: The Old Republic, and it incorporates some of those Knights of the Old Republic little hints, some of the current canon. And Star Wars and Disney have kind of kept their hands off it without saying it's canon. They're kind of like, oh, this game existed before we took over, and it's still around and still releasing patches. So we're like, not going to shut it down, but none of this counts. It's not actually canon, and it's
unless they come up with something amazing.
But the game has been out for like a weirdly long amount of time now, so it seems like it's too late.
My ad. I'm about to do an ad. Rangers. It is another ad for Native Deodorant. That's right. NativeDeodorant.com is where you go to get 20% off your first order, and you use the code FOREST. Live by a code. In this case, Forest. So Native Deodorant, I've been using it. It's very delightful. I am using the Rose Lavender personally because I don't like smelling like food. I like smelling like flowers if I'm going to smell like something. And it works. Make the switch to a natural deodorant. And it doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice on odor or wetness protection. And know that Native Deodorant always takes return when you order domestically. They have over 8,000 5-star reviews. They were checked out on the Today Show, Elle Magazine, just to name a couple. They have fewer, simpler ingredients, so you know everything that's in the deodorant. Aluminum may be linked to some serious health ramifications, so I have never used deodorant that has aluminum in it, and Native is aluminum-free, safe, and effective. And it comes in a wide variety of scents for men and women, plus they release new limited edition seasonal scents throughout the year. They also offer an unscented formula and a baking soda-free formula for those who are sensitive. The classic deodorant scents include coconut and vanilla. That's their most popular scent. I went with the lavender and rose, also very popular. They have a cucumber and mint, and they have a eucalyptus and mint. I think next time I will try the eucalyptus and mint. For 20% off your first purchase, visit nativedeodorant.com and use the promo code FOREST during checkout. So let's get back into the show.
They could, but there's nothing in it worth. You know how like they take the Marvel movies and they take from decades, different storylines from different decades, and there's so much stuff in this Old Republic and the stuff that isn't canon that they can't they just cherry pick the different stories and
so great. Thank you for asking that question. There's a storyline from the 90s in the comic books that is my favorite. This is like the whole reason I wanted to do this episode.
Okay.
And it's in this really insane limbo because the people who created the characters, or I think it's the guy who created one in particular who's like the central character, still somehow retains the rights to that character.
Oh, really?
Even though you think George Lucas or Kathleen Kennedy should have these rights locked in a vault with all the other Star Wars shit. There's this character named Nomi Sunrider.
Okay.
And she is a badass.
Okay.
And she needs to like have her own movie trilogy, but it's probably never going to happen because it got published in Dark Horse and they gave this guy the rights to Nomi Sunrider.
Oh, weird.
And so Nomi Sunrider is this woman who had force powers, and she got trained by this guy called Jedi Master Zahn. Mm-hmm. Nomi Sunrider is a human, but she's got kind of like a weird forehead in some of the art, so I'm not exactly what they're clear what they're trying to say there.
Right.
So it might just be she's a lady with a big forehead. I'm a guy with a big forehead. No judgments.
No judgment.
But she gets trained by this guy, and Zahn is a dinosaur. Mm-hmm. This should not surprise you, Jackie, but Zahn is this Jedi Master dinosaur that I love.
Oh, he's an actual dinosaur.
He looks like what they call a protoceratops, which means no horns, but he otherwise looks like a triceratops. So he's got like a beak.
Sure.
And he's got kind of a beard too, but he's got like a shield coming off the back of his head.
Do you know that I just saw cave paintings and I saw a woolly rhinoceros cave painting?
I do because I listened to your other podcast.
And it was unbelievable. Anyway, go ahead.
I love woolly rhinoceros.
I've never even heard of a woolly rhinoceros.
Woolly Ice Age animals are bat fuck banana shit crazy, and I love giant sloths and all that stuff.
They don't have giant sloths or saber-toothed tigers over in Europe, but they have woolly rhinoceroses. They have cave
sloths
bears.
are like here.
Yeah, sloths are here, and saber-toothed tigers too are here. They don't have saber-toothed tigers. They have cave lions and they have cave bears, and then they have woolly rhinoceroses. I've digressed. We go back.
Yes,
go.
Thon.
Thon is an actual dinosaur who is a Jedi Master.
Right. But and they don't call him a dinosaur, obviously. He's just this alien. But he does this thing where he lives on this weird planet full of dark force energy, and they touch on like the whole inspiration of why Yoda would go to Dagobah, even though this takes place thousands of years in the past, where he's like, I'm trying to study the force and become stronger by surrounding myself with a challenging negative energy.
Wow.
Which is just like an artist living in the city. I was immediately like, yes, tell me more. And he speaks in this weird, broken, like common tongue, because he's got a fucking beak for a face.
Right, it's hard to, he's a little bit of a...
Yeah.
Yes.
And Nomi rides him around, even though he's the master.
Okay.
It's crazy.
And so she's being trained.
Yes, and she becomes a badass, and a whole series of characters kind of build around her, but what's great about her is she is a strong enough character that you never feel like she is subject to the whim of a plot.
Okay.
Does that make sense? That's something that kind of like even Luke has to deal with, where Luke, the world kind of is unfair to Luke at several points. But no matter what happens to Nomi Sunrider, she kind of, even if she's heartbroken, doesn't give a fuck in the end. So she falls in love with a guy named Ulick Keldroma,
sure,
who is also a Jedi.
Okay,
but he's a fucking mess.
Okay,
and he's got very dashing, like Andy Ashcraft hair. Like he's got kind of like long bangs, and like he's like a handsome dude.
Okay,
he's a Jedi, and he comes up with this plan to infiltrate the Sith by pretending to be a fallen dark guy. But then when he does it,
how could that go wrong?
He does it all wrong. Like he pitches it to his friends, and they're like, "Don't do that. That's dumb."
Yeah.
And he's like, "But I don't know. I think I'm smart." And then he gets like kidnapped and indoctrinated and poisoned and turns actually evil.
Sure.
And
everyone saw that coming.
Becomes a Sith Lord. And like the guy, and that's the thing, like, but like as much of a fuck up as he is, it's interesting to watch him fuck up in slow motion over like 10 graphic novels. But you see like Nomi fall in love with him, they have a baby, and Vima Sunrider.
Okay.
Surprise, she becomes a Jedi later. But they fall in love, and you know he's a fuck up when he becomes evil, and Nomi's like, oh boy. But like it's still interesting.
Sure.
And you don't
and well done. If it's well done, it's well done.
And like you've got Nomi, so even when the story, like even when you're reading a series of books that's mostly about Ulick Keldroma and his antagonist, you're kind of like, don't worry, Nomi's going to come in and fix this at some point. And then his bad guy that he becomes co-Sith Lords with eventually is this guy, Azar Kun, who's this fucked up Sith Lord dude who found the planet Korriban, and like Korriban is this weird Sith planet where everyone looks like a fucking lobster.
Okay.
And at one point they commingle with humans and become like co-lobster people. But it's like this evil Force planet,
right?
And that's just fun,
to
me, because it's like, oh, so it's not like the center of all the dark side of the Force is still this thing that's everywhere and permeates everything.
And this is still 90s. Is this okay?
So all this stuff happens. The long and the short of it is Ulick gets blinded and dies, and it's just like, of course you died, you fucking idiot. And Nomi Sunrider is just this like beacon of just like strength and just rips bad dudes to shreds. And there's these cool giant spaceships that are like exoskeletal space beings that have been reappropriated into travel, and they're like half alive, and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Wow.
And it's a new take, and it's like, oh, this happened in the past, so you can believe no matter how weird this looks, as long as there's the Force, it's in the same universe, and all this stuff could have just died off over the millennia and eons.
Right.
And then like it inspired the video game in the sense that the video game, it looks a little more like original trilogy Star Wars, but they have a lot of that, like, this is thousands of years ago, these people are making the mistakes, and there was gonna star as one of the main characters Nomi Sunrider.
Oh, okay.
She was gonna be in it.
Yeah.
And then they changed the character's name to Bastila because the dude wouldn't give up the rights. And so that came out, and then that has this, that those video games are great.
Okay.
Even though the second one's kind of broken, it's a fun time, and there's some fun dark Jedi in there. And there's this assassin droid.
Right.
In them, that's one of the most famous. You may have heard of him.
Which one?
He's named HK-47.
HK-47.
He calls everyone meat bags.
Oh, okay.
Sound familiar?
Right, because there's flesh bags and meat bags, and then in Dr. Aphra, which is the Star Wars one that I'm
reading.
You're
currently educating me on too. Yeah.
Right, because Dr. Aphra, I think, might be.
She's a bad guy, right? That's what I've heard about her.
If remember in Indiana Jones, the French archaeologist?
Yeah.
Essentially,
as soon as you said French, I was like, okay.
Lautrec, what was his name? God
not
dang
Toulouse-Lautrec.
It was not Toulouse-Lautrec, but I can't remember his name. But
not an Indiana Jones dork. I've seen the movies. I enjoyed them greatly. I don't remember.
Yeah. So whatever. Oh, then this won't actually. But essentially, Dr. Aphra is she's an archaeologist, and her specialty is Jedi weapons and Jedi history. But she is also just wants to sell them to whoever wants them.
Sure. Yeah.
And so she is mostly concerned with her own life, but she is fascinated by Jedi history, and so she follows these Jedi weapons and these Jedi.
Yeah.
She is.
I have to catch up on the new Marvel books. I've only read a couple of them.
The Princess Leia one was amazing as well.
I got that for my daughter, and I love it.
And it was great. And but
sorry to jump on that.
For sure. But Dr. Aphra, she is the biggest mess there is, and there are two droids. There's 000.
I have seen them on the cover. They are like
and
dark
BD.
metal.
And because they're murder droids. They're programmed to murder, and they are hilarious.
Oh man, I gotta get HK-47 may have inspired them a little bit.
I'm sure.
I think he inspired K2SO and Rogue One and
I think that the Jedi, because Dr. Aphra doesn't have any Jedi powers. She is just a very good. She's Han Solo essentially to some extent.
Cool,
and she's super cool.
That's what it gets me excited. Is it's not Han Solo. It's a new character.
Yeah,
it's in the universe. Maybe she'll bump into Han Solo, but it's
right. And she has run into Darth Vader any number of times, and she keeps talking him out of killing her, and it's a delight.
Awesome.
Every time she runs into Darth Vader, we're like, oh, I guess it's over. And then she figures it out. But I know that there's at least 2 or 3 graphic novels so far.
I have to catch up on a lot of the new canon. I've read a few of the novels and actually less of the comic books. My oldest is into them. She's got the Princess Leia. I read some of the Chewbacca because my buddy wrote them.
That's neat.
And Jerry Duggan, very talented writer who I'm sure you know.
Yeah, he's going to come on.
Old nerd poker guy.
And he's yes.
And Jodie Hauser wrote the new Thrawn stuff. I don't know if you know Jodie Hauser. She's writing a lot of the Star Wars.
No, that'd be cool. Everyone's.
Oh, you would love Jodie Hauser.
Yeah, I'd love. I've been talking to Jerry about doing the show, and Mark Waid just did the show. And
cool.
His dorkdom was Superman, and it was fantastic. But have you watched any of the cartoons?
The some
series?
Of them. Yeah, it's tricky trying to keep track of that's like the muddiest canon stuff. My daughter is obsessed with Ahsoka Tano,
Who's that?
She's in Clone Wars, and she is in the Resistance. She's orange skin and has that weird sort of like kind of not quite the same. They're coney, yeah. They're like double headdress like things.
Yeah.
She's a Jedi, and she becomes like...
I think Clone Wars came first,
yes,
right?
Correct.
I watched the one after that and saw the whole season. Or the whole 2 seasons. There might be 3. I might have missed a season. Good. But they're pretty good. And
there's just so many of them.
Right. There's too much television for me to have any part in all the things that are on television, and I'm fine.
I find cartoons hard sometimes.
yeah?
It's not that I don't love them. It's just that like while I'm watching them, I feel I am being taken to a different demographic. I'm very aware of being middle-aged while watching cartoons.
Well, yeah. Well,
I feel my life force become irrelevant as I get through each.
Even Venture Brothers.
A little, well, not as much. I mean, definitely adult because
that's made
stuff.
For
yeah. Like Rick and Morty is like different. Yeah, it's not quite the same, but even adult themed cartoons, I'm still just sort of like, all right, well, this is an ironic statement about animation in some way, but I get it. Yeah. It's not that I'm opposed.
No. It's and the movies that I do love have so much CGI.
Right.
That
what's the difference?
Right. I feel like I'm kind of watching a cartoon anyway.
And Clone Wars and Resistance are CGI cartoons. So
are they?
Yeah. So they're 3-dimensional representations.
Oh, okay. So nice. Well, so we haven't gotten out of the 90s. And we're at 50 minutes.
Yeah. So I feel like if I can recommend anything, it's digging up those Dark Horse things as like a little nugget, because I'm sure tons of people have their own favorite expanded universe thing, and they're like, "That's his favorite." But if you haven't found one yet and you'd like to go back, I think I can recommend that pretty strongly. And then
and plus there are so many different circles.
Yeah, and you can get the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the really good game, the one that's ultra consistent and actually I think holds up very well.
Yeah.
On your iPad. Like you can get it for $10 in the iTunes store.
Oh, really?
Well worth $10. I bought it a second time. It plays great on tablet. And because it's role playing, you're picking combat order in slow motion. It's almost like Final Fantasy fighting, like where it's 3D fighting, and you can play it in real time. But it has a built-in thing where you can pause the combat and pick what your next few actions are going to be, like with like a Final Fantasy fight. And HK-47 is he's to me like the angry droid that they made all future angry droids, and he basically the plot is you're a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
Who gets their memory wiped and wakes up in a med bay, and you become a hero or a villain, depending on what you choose.
Oh, okay.
But you find HK-47, who also doesn't remember you, but used to be your assassin droid.
Okay.
So you find him with his memory wiped, and you sort of grow together. He will probably stay evil no matter what you choose and continue to call all flesh sacks meat bags. And he has all sorts of really funny lines where he just talks about how great it is to murder people. And they go, "Oh, master, I can't wait to slit that meat bag open, master." But he's so fucking cool.
Then, and 000 is completely based on that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And but it would make sense that more than one would be programmed.
And if you want, the novel that I really liked that came out recently was Bloodline. Have you read that?
No.
It's the Princess Leia novel, basically, that came out. It takes place 6 years before Force Awakens. It's very good.
There are so many, like a lot of these, a lot of the shows and the movies and stuff. They're like everything takes place after the first movie, after Hope, Force
Awakens. Oh, New
A New Hope, right after A New Hope.
I swear they're gonna go old school.
Mm-hmm.
The Disney stuff has been really fun and brightly colored. Like I think all of it. I feel very comfortable waiting until I have a vacation to start catching up on some of that shit. But like, I don't know why they're waiting to cash in some of that.
Have you been to the Disneyland yet?
No.
No?
I've heard from many people. Brian Posehn was just there crying, you know.
Oh,
many Instagram photos of Posehn weeping in the Millennium Falcon.
Just very psyched. And Tommy Ryman and his wife went and they bought both a droid and lightsabers for each other. And they're like,
man.
We essentially spent all of our Christmas and birthday monies for 2 years.
Well,
because they're expensive, right?
I did take my daughters to Disneyland when it was starting to happen. They hadn't opened the place yet, but they got to do the Jedi training thing where they like got on stage and fought Darth Vader and Kylo Ren, and it was really fun. It was so efficient and well run, just like bam, 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 get up there with 30 other kids, and they had a blast.
It's a classic Disney. You know, like when you go to Harry Potter Land, it's kind of a mess, and but it's the best run of any Universal thing ever.
They just went to the London one with their mom, and they thought it was amazing.
There's a London Universal as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh
as
my
well,
God.
there ought to be.
Yeah.
And because I've been to Orlando and I've been to this one, so very pleased. But we have season tickets to this one. We've gone to breakfast at the Three Broomsticks twice.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
It's just fun.
My daughters have one. Well, actually, that's not true. One daughter does not have a wand. The other has 3.
3 wands. I have 2, but only one of them has the RFID. So
my oldest is obsessed with Hermione and has the Hermione everything, and then has also a Luna Lovegood wand, and I think a third one that's just like hers.
Oh right, yeah, just a nice.
My daughter's named Nova, and I think it's just like the Nova wand. Or something.
Oh, very cool. Nova's a great name.
It is great. Well, it's short for novella. Also.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, Dan Telfer,
nerdy kids.
We have been talking for this. By the way, does everyone know that we're talking to Dan Telfer? We really went
it's in the episode
into a rabbit. We went into a rabbit hole for sure.
I hope I covered enough for nerds who know about this stuff. It feels like there's got to be.
I think that this is definitely some corners. You're doing it.
Do you feel like was this a good door?
Nerd poker.
Yeah.
D&D Beyond and the filling is a stand-up show.
And I'm trying to tour more.
And you're trying to tour more.
Yeah.
So if you follow you on Instagram and Twitter and all the things at Dan Telfer, you can see where he's performing.
I wish you would.
And do you have a dantelfer.com?
It lapsed for 2 seconds and was purchased by some weird aluminum siding company. Maybe you should be mad at your father about this. I don't know what happened.
I don't have any room to be mad at him anymore.
No, but I just put it on social media. So
yeah, so it's fine. So, but find Dan Telfer, for he is a delight. Thank you for doing the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and you know the rules out there, Rangers. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?